"2025 has been the most insanely stacked year for video games in the last decade. At least it has for my tastes. I could just not keep up with everything that was being thrown at me this year. It felt like every month there was another set of games tailored to exactly what I look for in gaming. And I also happened to find a bunch of games outside my own wheelhouse too, and I really enjoyed them. I truly do think we are in the midst of a golden era for gaming. The common talking point for anybody paying attention is that there are too many interesting, high quality games to stay on top of these days. And it's been this way for a few years now. From indie games to massive blockbuster AAA games to newly made teams making AA bangers, there's so much content being pumped out at every level. The weird thing about this year is that I don't actually think it will go down as one of those watershed years that massively changed the industry in a way that like 2023 or 2017 did. 2025 instead was just a year of bangers, and specifically a bunch of my favourite genres that connected really heavily with me. Just before I get to the cream of the crop, I want to do a quick shout out for other great games that didn't quite make the cut this year. Constance was a beautifully animated little Metroidvania with clever spins on platforming staples. Doom: The Dark Ages was a hectic bloodbath that again shifted the core game design of the series, making this modern reboot one of the best trilogies in recent memory. Fretless: The Wrath of Rifson was a rhythm RPG made for guitar nerds like myself. Mario Kart World is the best controlling game in the series, with some cool new moves, and it took a few swings with its world design as well. Is This Seat Taken? A neat little puzzle platformer with a lot of charm. Bionic Bay was a great Limbo-like experience with way more pinpoint platforming than you would expect from that type of game. And Shinobi Art of Vengeance was a hyper-stylish brawler with fun 2D combat systems. Of course, there's also a ton of games I didn't get to, so if it seems like there's some glaring omissions in this list, it's likely that I just didn't get around to them. Alright, that's enough waffling, let's get on to the list. Like I said in my video last year, Sword of the Sea is a full circle moment for the kind of experiential games that put their art and their music forward before anything else. The introduction of more involved gameplay in this quasi-journey sequel feels like a meaningful and more importantly a fun iteration on a formula that has been getting a little stagnant in recent years. And of course, it's still jaw-dropping to look at and listen to as well. This is about as pure and cleanly designed as puzzle platformers get. Everything in Ooh revolves around a single mechanic, dropping bombs and detonating them to gain access to new places. Over the course of roughly 2 hours, the developer Nama Takahashi squeezes every single bit of juice he can from utilising this single idea in a multitude of different ways. It's increasingly inventive and complex, without ever feeling obtuse or unintuitive. Just when you think you've figured out everything you can do, the game subtly prods you in a way that shows off something new that you could always have done. It's the kind of game that'll make you go, oh of course, that's so clever, every 5 minutes. A good example of that is that the title of this game is literally a depiction of what the main character looks like. It only made sense to follow up It Takes Two with another co-op platformer after that game sold an absolutely ridiculous number of copies. Spit Fiction, for me, is a clear step up in just about every way from that game, with more involved and skillful platforming challenges and more creative mechanics. Look, the writing still sucks, there's no getting around that with these games, but thankfully it's easier to ignore this time round and to just enjoy the fun new ideas that constantly get thrown your way. And that ending? That is chef's kiss, one of the best endings in any co-op game ever, one of the best endings this year.
Excuse me?
Media almost never makes me cry, but And Roger hit close to home for me, specifically with some of its themes. The basic premise here is that you're following the story of a girl who wakes up and doesn't know the person who's taking care of her. Now this is a wonderful 1 hour long graphic adventure that uses mouse only inputs, kind of like Florence from a few years ago. It expertly incorporates the few interactive elements into the narrative in a diegetic and interesting way that strengthens the story, and I'm doing my absolute best here to recommend this small and cheap game without telling you what it's really about, because the story is the game. It packs a devastatingly huge punch for such a small package. A perfect example of how to dip into nostalgia without ever being a slave to it. Ninja Gaiden Ragebound is a razor-sharp action platformer with an addictive, rhythmic flow to its action, scored by thumping synth rock bangers and illustrated by some of the best pixel art in the business. The Game Kitchen understood the assignment here, and it's still one of the best and purest action platformers in recent times. Not an ounce of fat, just one badass level after another in a neat little package. It's the best ninja game of the year. Okay, I feel like I have to preface this one with the fact that I dislike this sport, and throughout my childhood I actively hated it. It's a testament to how good Rematch is that it's made me grow some genuine appreciation for the flow and nuance of soccer as a sport. Those moments where your team works like a well-oiled machine with slick passing up the pitch, a beautiful cross in and a perfect finish into the back of the net, that's what it's all about. More than any other exposure I've had to this sport, this is the most convincing case for it being dubbed the beautiful game. Citizen Sleeper 2 doubles down on the potential of the first game by using the same mechanical scaffolding and narrative backdrop to tell its own distinct story in a distant system that stands completely on its own. Instead of the bustling space station that you slowly make your home in Citizen Sleeper 1, this game takes place on a microsystem of stations and shipwrecks, which you explore at your own peril to survive alongside an assembled crew of misfits. RPG-style dice rolls fuel nail-bitingly tense scrap missions needed to get by, and the aftermath of each mission serves as time to get to know the cast and uncover the central plot. The writing here is stuffed with as much beautiful prose as its predecessor, and deftly handles big themes like the relationship between labour and capital, humanity, synthetic life, found family, and everything in between. I love all these aspects of Citizen Sleeper, but they're nothing without the beating heart of this series. The palpable atmosphere that perfectly evokes feelings of interstellar loneliness and cosmic gravitas. Punching through all that celestial melancholy is an unignorable sense of peace, beauty, and hopefulness that never leaves the writing or the core themes of the story or the incredible soundtrack of spacey ambient electronic music that you just want to float around in. Beautiful game. It's so rare to find a game that instills a meaningful life lesson, but Keep Driving did exactly that for me. My first playthrough of this game took around 2 hours, and I came out of that with a lot of positive feelings towards the music, the general vibe, and the simple but engaging card game that amounts to much of the gameplay. But I felt a bit confused when I hit an abrupt ending. There was just so much more to do. My second playthrough was 3 times longer. Keep Driving is a game wholly centred on the journey, not the destination. Throw on an in-game CD of jangly, wistful indie rock and slow down. Talk to more hitchhikers, help more people out, drive around to different parts of the country, do as much as you can do and see all that you can see, because summer will end and you don't have to cut it short. The more I became steeped in this idea, the more I started to really fall in love with what Keep Driving was saying. It's a game that strives to capture youthful wanderlust of open roads, emergent stories and endless possibilities. But more than any of that, it's a much needed reminder to stop and smell the roses, embrace the oddities and unplanned detours that get thrown at you throughout life. I could write 1,000 words here, but for Skate's story, seeing really is believing, and I am a believer. The big question that hung over the head of this game for so long was, surely that won't play as good as it looks, but I'm here to tell you that it does, it absolutely does. It would be fair to assume Skate Story is more of a kind of graphic adventure game that wears some skating clothes, which would already make it a really inventive, unique, jaw-dropping game. But it's also a really great skating game as well, with a ton of nuance and a grounded, scratchy feel that eschews unrealistic, arcadey skating moves for more modest moves and combinations. It occupies kind of a halfway point between the arcadey shenanigans of Tony Hawk with the more sim-like approach of Skate. This is as good as it looks, and that is a high compliment because this shit looks incredible. Every new scene is a dazzling, surrealistic art piece that melds urban buildings into trippy, otherworldly environments. A soundtrack composed by the New York chillwave band Blood Cultures ties everything together with a series of eclectic beats smothered in buzzing synths, dreamy vocals, and vintage psychedelic soundscapes. Somehow, this is simultaneously one of the best Gaiden games I've played, as well as one of the best artsy graphic adventure games I've played. Considering how ubiquitous Metroidvanias are, it's a bit weird that Metroid's far more popular sister series hasn't received the same swell of indie imitators over the last few years. There has been a deluge of games that really execute on the classic Zelda dungeon crawling formula, yet Pipistrello and the cursed Yoyo is so fully formed that you would think the competition is fierce. But this game is far more than just an imitator made to cash in on nostalgia. It's already one of the best Zelda-likes ever made, and it actually stands toe-to-toe with some of the best 2D entries in that legendary franchise. Pipistrello has its own completely original setting and style that doesn't resort to medieval fantasy tropes to remind us of the good old days. It replaces the open green fields and castles with a concrete metropolis where dungeons take the form of football stadiums, construction sites, or shopping centres. Swords and arrows are replaced with a yo-yo that Pipistrello learns new tricks with to fight enemies and solve increasingly complex puzzles. The yo-yo here is insanely versatile and used to its fullest in a way that few Zelda games even achieve. The puzzles and dungeons here are carefully crafted, work intuitively, and demand a lot of lateral thinking and ingenuity. Remember how I talked about squeezing as much juice as it could from one mechanic? Well, Pipistrello does that for every single new ability you gain across each of its dungeons. All of this elegant game design then gets wrapped up in a beautiful 32-bit style with charming visuals, a whimsical story, and music that recaptures classic GBA vibes. It's kind of insane that this game matches the high bar of classic Zelda ostensibly without ever taking a single direct mechanic from that series. It's an indie game of the highest caliber, and it's a must for fans of classic Zelda. As Supergiant's first sequel, a lot of expectations were placed on the shoulders of this game. After all, one of the biggest strengths of that studio is how they went from new idea to new idea, and Hades itself is a complete package. Looking at the story, I think you can kind of safely say that Hades 2 wasn't really made because Supergiant had more of a story to tell in this universe, but god damn did they have a lot more to say with their gameplay. I think Hades 2 isn't getting as much chatter as the first one did because it's easy to say, oh well yeah, the gameplay is still great, and move on. But that is a huge mistake because Hades 2 is such a titanic leap in quality that it makes the first game look almost rudimentary. When it comes to variety, combat, structure, level design and buildcraft, everything here is turned up to 11. It's one of the most addicting loops in the genre all about addicting loops, and absolutely every element masterfully feeds into that one more run mentality. As well as all the new weapons and boons, there's an entire second path with 4 distinct biomes, effectively making this double the game. One of the genius things about the first game is that death didn't ever result in a deflated feeling, because it brought you back to home base where you could talk to the incredibly well written characters. Hades 2 features more of those colourful, lovingly crafted reinterpretations of characters from the canon of Greek mythology, and further adds more stuff to do at home base to stop the feeling of root burnout ever occurring. With the 2 paths as well, you always have the option of massively altering your next run, which made this game absolutely impossible for me to put down. Ultimately, yes, it's more Hades, but it's more Hades. This game is so good that it made me start reading Greek mythology again.
No! Return to Shadow now.
A beautiful and melancholic JRPG that delights in inverting the narrative tropes of the genre while still retaining a massive amount of reverence for its influences. For such a fantastical premise, Expedition 33 is a remarkably grounded and mature story with stunning vision and incisive moments made to stir the mind. The narrative left turns will send you reeling, and only when you catch up will you start to unpack what Sandfall are really trying to say with this game. It's a thoughtful examination of personal grief and generational trauma, and how both impact the outlook of an individual as well as a society that is rocketing towards catastrophe. It's not just the story that has this game the talk of the town for basically the entire year though. Clair Obscur packs a huge punch above its weight class when it comes to art direction, voice performance, musical score and animation. All of this is to serve a gripping story and lovable characters, sure, but they also accentuate the incredible turn-based combat system here. The biggest innovation in Expedition 33 is how much parrying and dodging are emphasised in the core combat. You must learn enemy movesets and you must react to them, effectively making the least active part of any turn-based game the most engaging part of Expedition 33. With such a model, you can never once get hit and still be able to take out enemies that massively outlevel you, which is incredibly satisfying. The thing that really sticks out with Expedition 33 is just how uncompromising it is with its single vision, and it executes on that with razor-sharp precision. I have criticisms here and there that stop me from awarding this the perfect masterpiece status that many do, but most of my gripes are meant to a difference in opinion rather than a lack of execution. One of my favourite experiences in gaming this year was rolling credits on this game on my 33rd birthday. As somebody who got into Japanese role-playing games with Final Fantasy VIII way back when I was growing up, this game felt made for me right from the beginning. It absolutely deserves the hype, and it's one of the best JRPG style games ever made. And yet this year is so goddamn strong that even a game like Clair Obscur, which would be number 1 in many other years, falls back to 4th on my list in 2025. That's because the next 3 games aren't just my 3 favourites of this year, all 3 of them are already some of my favourite games ever made.
I was never meant to be a warrior.
Like I said at the start of the video, this was a year of games that felt tailored to my taste specifically, but it's always nice when a surprise comes along, and I was not prepared to love Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 as much as I did. What an insanely impressive open world RPG. KCD2 just layers system on top of system to create a truly organic world full of emergent gameplay opportunities and utilises those systems to create a historically accurate depiction of Middle Ages Bohemia. There's just so much painstaking detail in creating a sim-like experience that responds to every action you take. For example, if you stink, people will respect you less, but you're more intimidating. If you're wearing lordly clothes, the upper classes will listen to you more, but random mercenaries won't give a shit about what you have to say. You have to wear linens before equipping the proper armours, and those armours clang and make too much noise if you try and sneak around in them. And there's like 7 other systems I've not even touched on. KCD2 thinks about and remembers everything you've done and responds in kind. If Kingdom Come 2 was just a highly reactive, immersive RPG with a focus on historical realism, then it would already be doing enough to justify itself as one of the best games of the year. But what's really special about this game is the writing and the adventure. The historical accuracy of this game is what allows the writing to shine, because it shackles the writers to make stories that are believable, intimate, and ultimately have to tackle the ugliest parts of history head on. In a fantasy RPG, you can set the player off into some cave to fight a dragon, and yeah, that's cool, but in KCD2, a rumoured beast in a cave ends up actually being some renegade who's poaching at night to pay off his drinking debts. Or like the witch in a hut, actually isn't a witch at all, but a midwife who was excised from her community because she didn't baptise a stillborn baby. These kind of stories hit much harder, because they paint a picture of human society and the human mentalities of the time. And that writing extends to the main quest, which quickly becomes a roaring adventure across the lands, filled with a set of extremely flawed but lovable and 3-dimensional characters. Now, a lot of what I've said makes KCD2 seem downbeat and difficult, but the beauty of this game is how much of a fun adventure it is once you get the hand of those systems. It's a joyride filled to the brim with high quality side quests, unforgettable characters, and a main quest that grows in scope as Henry and his boys get further embroiled in a larger political drama. It's one of the best open RPGs ever made, and it's arguably the best RPG of the last decade. I don't think people really appreciate how batshit crazy it is to give players the ability to climb any wall and destroy nearly all of the environment in a 3D platformer. All established game design in the 3D platformer space is predicated on the immutability of its environment, because that's how you make platforming challenges. The fact that Donkey Kong Bananza not only succeeds, but excels, is proof enough of the wizardry and creativity that only Nintendo are capable of. Bananza is a never-ending dispenser of oddball, fun ideas, all driven by Nintendo's core ethos of surprise and delight. It is a delight to smash through the environment going ape mode, but there's always a fun surprise waiting for you on the other side of the wall that you're after smashing. Every hub world here is eccentric, colourful and full of weirdo left turns on common platformer tropes. Nintendo allowed themselves to embrace strange visuals for this new incarnation of the Donkey Kong IP, and they came up with a set of levels that are as fun to look at as they are to explore. All of them, of course, featuring their own mechanics that get iterated on in creative new ways before moving on to the next. I particularly love the shrine-esque challenge rooms in every hub world that rein in the freedom and get you to do some honest-to-goodness 3D platforming as well. These stages allow Bananza to be both a freeform collectathon as well as a linear 3D platformer with tight challenges that force you to understand the movement system. And holy shit, this might be the best movement in any 3D game. It has a ton of depth and nuance that you will slowly start to understand. Once you figure out that you can chain together every move here to pull off massive jumps that cover an ungodly amount of space, then you realise that there is no place out of reach, and the game wants you to embrace this liberating movement system as well. Bananza takes a lot of the best elements from Mario Odyssey and imbues the free-form ethos of the modern Legend of Zelda games to create the most innovative 3D platformer in probably 20 years. It's creative, it's wondrous, it feels like a massive toy box stuffed with ideas and decisions that are made just to maximise happiness without ever sacrificing depth. I never replay games, but I was suffering from the hangover of being finished with this game so badly that I went back and did a complete zero banana run, which the game just lets you do. You don't need to collect anything to beat the game. The Mario team simply do not miss, and it's unsurprising that they absolutely smashed it here. Replaying a game right after beating it is extremely rare for me, but I was lucky enough to have that experience twice this year. The problem I have when writing about Hollow Knight Silksong is that every single inch of this world deserves its own 1,000 word essay. It's telling that the narrative around this near mythological release went from what the hell is taking them 7 years to I actually can't believe they managed to do this in only 7 years. And that's because this game is impossibly good. It's the most detailed, polished and expansive Metroidvania I've ever played, and this is my favourite genre of video game. It's not near flawless, it is flawless. And yet it's not so polished that it sands down any of the edges that make Team Cherry's core game design so captivating. I went into this game honestly expecting to be that annoying guy who'd be like, yeah, you guys need to play more Metroidvanias. But this game completely humbled me. Not because I didn't think it would be great, but because I didn't expect it to hit as hard as the original Hollow Knight did. In fact, Silksong is so good that it's made me re-evaluate the first Hollow Knight entirely. My gripes with that game was that I thought the moveset was too safe and the map design couldn't be as intricate as the best games in the genre just because of how insanely big the scope was. Clearly, I was wrong. Silksong's genius isn't in the incredible boss design, the perfect platforming, the agile moveset, the massive amount of unique enemies, the varied combat options, or even the stellar art direction and music. Let's just put a pin in those things for the moment. The real secret sauce here is how utterly perfect the level design is. How every single area flows on from the last in a natural way, inviting you to get lost, and then introduces new stage mechanics. And then it gently guides you down another path that inexplicably wraps back around to where you had been before. It's a type of world design that feels organic and cohesive, and makes the act of getting lost an absolute joy. The only other time I've experienced design like this in the genre is with Super Metroid, which to this day is still my favourite game ever made. I liked Super Metroid so much that it sent me down a rabbit hole of playing every single Metroidvania I could get my hands on just to chase the high. None of them ever recreated the invisible guidance and complexity of that game's map. Silksong is on that level, and the cherry on top here is that the frictional game design that pushed so many people away from this game, the runbacks, the stingy economy, the difficulty, the fact that you still need to equip a compass and you still need to sit at a fucking bench to draw the map every time, all of these things, they only further immerse you into the world and make you appreciate this map design all the more. An easier or more quality of life focused game would have you examining the map and all of its nooks and crannies far less than Silksong does. That is the magic of the exploration that Team Cherry have cooked up. Okay, now let's take a pin out of all those other aspects I mentioned. The unmatched levels of polish, some of the best 2D art in the medium, a gorgeously layered soundtrack, deep lore and world building with environmental storytelling, great enemy and boss design, and an extremely robust and agile moveset that feels completely unique in the genre. All of these come together in perfect harmony with meticulous attention to detail to create an intoxicating and atmospheric piece of art. This game completely took over my life. Even after I got the true ending, I went back and I 100%ed it, and then I did all the optional stuff that isn't required for the 100%, and then I still wanted to play more, so I started looking into how to do the speedrun trophies. I just wanted to stay in this world as much as I possibly could. Silksong is proof that it is possible to catch lightning in a bottle. You just need to give 3 geniuses 7 years.